Never buy these types of houses. That's what we're going to be talking about today. From charming century old cottages to sleek modern condos, the allure of finding the perfect home, it can quickly turn into a full-on nightmare if you're not aware of the hidden pitfalls. And that is no exaggeration. The fact is, in the world of real estate, not all homes are created equal. And some homes come with risks that could seriously drain your wallet and your patience. And the last type of home that I'm going to warn you about against buying, I'm sure it's probably going to ruffle a few feathers here, but I'm okay with that because at the end of the day, you need to be aware of what it is that you're buying. So let's go ahead and dive into the 6 types of houses that I think you should run the other way from and never buy. The first one is stratified properties. Properties with a red flag, whether it's a condo or a townhouse, you absolutely must review the strata documents going back a minimum of 2 years, if not more. And you're going to want to look for specific red flags. Number one, you're going to want to be on the lookout for pending litigation. If there's any type of litigation that's pending, run the other way because lawyers, let's face it, they are always expensive. Number 2, excessive disrepair. If the strata hasn't been taking care of the property, things like your roof, your elevator, rotten balconies, all of these types of things can cost you a lot of money. And by the way, if you're in BC and it was built between 85 and 2000, be on the lookout for the leaky condo crisis issue. Rain screening issues, they can cost you a lot of money. And, if there's no contingency fund or a small contingency fund, that lets you know as well that the strata has not been doing their job. They have not been collecting enough funds to take care of potential issues that are coming forward in the future. And those issues, like I've mentioned, those things can cost you, the strata owner, a lot of money. We're talking to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars. And if you're not expecting that, that could put you in dire straits. Now, just a quick tip here, going through 2 years of documents, those strata docs, they can be like, 500-600 pages worth of documentation. It's not fun stuff to read. It's very dry and boring, and it can take you a lot of time. So a real quick tip, there is AI software out there that can review the documents for you. Talk to your realtor about that, but it can do a preliminary review for you and try and find some of those red flags. And if you see those red flags, run the other way. Now, of course, if you find a stratified property, you've gone through the preliminary review with the AI software, you like what you see, by all means, make sure that you go with your human naked eye and review every single page of the documentation to make sure that nothing was missed. The second type of home I want you to steer clear from are homes over 100 years old. And don't get me wrong, I love old heritage homes, the character, the stories behind them, it's all really cool stuff. But when it comes to owning one, well, the expenses and repairs, restorations, they can be very, very expensive. The plumbing in these old homes, they usually had lead pipes, and that lead piping, it costs you literally tens of thousands of dollars to replace. And if you look at the electrical, way back in the day, they used to use knob and tube. Now, hopefully over the years that's been, upgraded, but still, code is always changing, and there's a very good chance that the wiring still might not meet today's current code. And then, of course, there's asbestos. That stuff's found in the ceilings. It's found in the floor tiles. They even use it as insulation for the older hot water pipes. That kind of stuff, you need an environmental professional to handle it safely to get it removed. Of course, with older homes, there's also other safety hazards. You're going to find oftentimes there's lower ceilings and doorways, there's laundry chutes, steeper staircases with the wider railings that kids can get their heads stuck in, all sorts of stuff. Non-working fireplaces. These are all serious potential hazards for young children. So if you have a young family, definitely think about those issues. The next type of home you never want to buy is a home on a floodplain. Now you're saying, Glenn, why would I ever do that? But the truth is sometimes you don't know, and even the sellers don't know. So you want to make sure you check the city website for the floodplain maps and make sure that your property that you're potentially going to buy is not in a flood zone. Even if it says the flood zone is, 100 or a 500-year flood zone, it can still happen. Storms are unpredictable. I mean, look at what happened in the recent floods in 2021 in the Fraser Valley. It caught a lot of people off guard. Abbotsford was really heavily hit. And not to mention, if you buy a home in a flood zone, well, the insurance costs are a lot more expensive as well. They can range anywhere from a few extra $100 to a few extra thousands of dollars per year. Next up is homes with an underground oil tank. Now, homes that were built prior to 1980, they were using oil still to heat the home. So you want to make sure that this home, if you're looking at something pre-80, does not have an underground oil tank, which means you need to get scanning done and testing done. Now, typically, even if you go and you look at a house and they said there is an oil tank and it's been decommissioned, that is not enough, because just because it's decommissioned doesn't mean there hasn't been further leaching of oil into the soil. And remediation of that can cost tens of thousands of dollars, if not even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's absolutely crucial that if you buy an older home pre-1980, it was around 1980 they started using natural gas. Prior to that, again, they were using oil to heat the home. So you need to make sure that there's no existing oil tank underground. If there is, even if it's been decommissioned, usually what they do is they'll empty the tank, they'll drain the tank of the oil, and they'll put sand in there. It's still not enough because, again, it can still leak. So you want to make sure that the seller removes the entire oil tank before you consider making an offer on the home. Not too long ago, back in 2012, there was a homeowner who decided to sell their home in North Vancouver. And this homeowner, they'd been there for 20 years. And they didn't know about the oil tank. They didn't know there was one buried beneath the property. And the removal of that oil tank decontamination, it cost her $85,000. That's a lot of money that you don't want to have to deal with. So just a quick tip here. Make sure that you review the property disclosure statement. When somebody sells their home, they should have a property disclosure statement that your realtor can get a hold of for you. Make sure you review the property disclosure statement and that they show that there's no sign of an oil tank, because the seller, they need to be honest here and let you know whether they know or not. So that's sort of step number one. The other thing you can do is always do a home inspection. Never, ever forgo a home inspection, especially with an older home, because they need to come in and do an oil tank scan on the property. Anything pre-1980, like I said, you want to do an oil tank scan, which is basically a glorified metal detector, making sure there's no tank under the ground. And again, if there is, run the other way. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and you're getting any value out of it, please do me a favor. Hit the like button. It just takes a second, and consider subscribing, because I create these types of videos on a regular basis to help people just like you make informed decisions when buying and selling real estate. All right, so number 5 is poor workmanship in houses. Now, this can be with both old houses and in new houses. Specifically, I want you to be on the lookout for cosmetic finishes, things like a bad paint job, uneven molding, flooring. Any of these things can reveal serious issues. And it's not just older houses, it's new builds as well. I've been in condos, new builds, townhouses, where I'm walking and I can actually feel that the floor is uneven. If you were to put a marble on the floor and it starts rolling, that's not a good sign. This is a new build. That should not be happening. Also with older homes, putting lipstick on a pig, as they say, is not enough. Just making it look good on the surface, well, what's happening in the background? What are the bones of the building like? So when you see things like bad paint jobs or uneven molding, that's a really big sign, because if they can't even make it presentable and do the cosmetics correctly, imagine what's going on behind the walls. And so a tip here with that is to always check the history of the home. How often is it being sold? Is it a quick flip? Let's face it, there are people out there who are buying homes, renovating them, and quick flipping them. Those are the ones that you really want to make sure that they're not doing a shoddy job. So make sure you check the cosmetics of the home, because they are a big indicator of what might be found behind the walls. And the last one I want to warn you about is manufactured mobile homes. Now, I'm going to get a bit of slack for this, I understand, and I get it. Real estate is really expensive, and manufactured mobile homes, they're a lot less expensive. However, real estate, in my opinion, is an investment. And just because a mobile home is more affordable, it does not mean it's an investment. As a matter of fact, it's a depreciating asset in most cases. And getting a mortgage for a manufactured home can be very difficult, particularly if you don't own the land. And most mobile homes, or at least a lot of them, they're on rented pads. And typically a lender, they're not going to look at that type of home. What they do is they look at the economic life that's left on the home, and then they knock off 5 years. So for example, if there's 15 years left of life on that manufactured home, they're going to knock off 5 years and give you a 10-year amortization. I can't say that word. A 10-year amortization at best on your mortgage. And let's face it, 10 years amortization versus like a 25-year mortgage, which is more typical. Well, if you're on 10 years, your cost of your mortgage payments are going to be a whole lot more. Again, on a depreciating asset. And all of this makes them much more harder to sell down the line. Typically, a mobile home, it's going to sit on the market for a lot longer than a regular detached or a stratified condo. Now, if price is an issue, I get it. I totally get it. But what I recommend you do, buy something that is going to appreciate in value. So if you have to, start with a small condo, even if it's a little bit further out from where you might like to be, and say it's a studio condo, the smallest thing you can buy. And even if you have to buy it with a friend and put in bunk beds, do whatever you need to do. You might need to suffer a little bit today to get ahead for tomorrow. So if you put in the work today, it's going to be a little bit more painful, uncomfortable sleeping in those bunk beds or whatever the case might be. But in the future, you're setting yourself up for a much easier life. You can then, once the property appreciates, you can sell it, you can upsize to something bigger, perhaps kick out your roommate, get your own place, a 1-bedroom, then eventually move to a 2-bedroom, and so on and so forth. But start off with a condo and move your way up if money is an issue. All right, so you're probably at that point where you're asking yourself, Glenn, you've told me everything I can't buy. What can I buy? Well, I talked to you a little bit about that, but more importantly, it's going to be different in every city and every neighborhood because there are good neighborhoods to buy and there are neighborhoods that you're definitely going to want to steer clear of. Not to mention when you're looking at a building, whether it's a detached house, a townhouse, or a condo, you want to look at the builder and do they have a good reputation? And so that's something a good qualified realtor can help you with. So if you're in need of a realtor, go ahead, click on the link below this video, and I can definitely put you in contact with a realtor in your city who can take very good care of you.